This is my topic for today, the quest from speculative design fiction to experiential pragmatic future. So basically, in a nutshell, what I want to focus on is around speculative design and how we can use that as a tool to envision the future, right? So when I talk about future, let's start with something very, very simple. How many of us have procrastinated stuff for the future? I know I have done that. So, for example, especially in the lockdown over here in India, about healthy habits, going to the gym, etc. But I have a good reason now to not blame it on myself. Why? I'll just share with you. So, according to science, it is said that when you procrastinate things to future because you don't have time now, that's actually because of a quirk in your brain, which makes us see our future self as a totally different person. So even though consciously we know that future me and the right now me are the same person, but our brain doesn't process the concept of future me that way. So it has been found when you think about a stranger and when you think about your future self, the similar part of brain, kind of lights up. So there's a theory around called future self-continuity, which talks that when you plot yourself in comparison to your future self in a line, so the more we are closer to our future self, the more we have good habits about, like, for example, saving money, exercising, and so forth. So what one professor, Hal Hershfield, what he did was that he took photos of his subjects and he turned them into digital avatars, and then he processed them through a age processing algorithm, and then he fitted those photos into a VR setup, and he made the participant wear it, and when he will walk around in a virtual setting and come across a mirror, he would see his older self. And so this was just a very low fidelity exercise, but he also did many more complicated exercise other than this. And what he concluded from this exercise was that if they are able to interact more with their future self, they are more likely to make better decisions. So he gave them options like he gave them $1,000 and asked them that you have 4 options, like you can save money, you can immediately enjoy it you can plan a trip, or or invest it in a retirement fund. So people tend to give more choices towards the future when they actually saw and could relate with the future self. So how do we help our future self out? So, well, that's what I'm going to talk about today. So basically, I'm going to talk about what is speculative design, how do we use it, what has been done using speculative design, and the conclusion. So again, the whole term and the concept of speculative design was kind of very nicely formulated in this book called Speculative Everything. I'm currently going through it. I haven't completed it. So this book is by Anthony Dune and Fiona Rabai. And what they say that speculative design can be used to trigger debates and critical reflection on alternative socially oriented narratives. So as soon as I heard alternative narratives, immediately, I got this example in my mind of Black Mirror. I know most of you have also seen this, right? So what other practitioner of speculative design has to say is that it is a way to explore implications of emerging technology or on the social cultural trend, right? And also it is about not only just imagining, but also investigating, building prototypes and testing it out, right? Ways in which the emerging technologies, they influence and are shaping this world, right? So in the book, the authors have combined all the design related terminologies into 2 columns. So first column, which talks about the current design technology and the terminology and the process that we use, is somewhere focused around problem solving, innovation, and application, right? But they also mentioned that in column B is where they see speculative design, where they want to use it for more than problem solving, but about problem finding, and more towards provocation of the present state, and also seeing the implication of all these emerging technologies, right? So Elliot Montgomery, he mapped all this design jargons and big fields into constraint and unconstrained parameter. Again, note that the scale is not indicative of significance. So when we have a lot of unconstrained parameters, so it moves more towards art and classical art as we know it, right? And somewhere in between constrained and unconstrained, right, lies the field of speculative design, which includes design future, design fiction, some aspect of critical design. So in nutshell, this is what is the goal, that to provoke and poke questions, to shift from design application to design implication. And more than predicting the future, it's about unsettling our present. Again, Black Mirror. So then how do we do it? So there is a process around it. So it all starts with a signal. A signal is a focus area, which could be emerging technologies, experimental usage, anything. So I have listed down some of the words, but it could be more. So if you go to through this book of Amy Webb, where she talks about the signals, you'll find more such signals, right? It could be our immediate happening. For example, pandemic could be a good signal. What we do with this signal? We put it in scenarios, right? So what are the scenarios? Scenarios are what our signals are going to look like in future. Now, this is another study where they have divided the future in three parts. Probable future, plausible future, and possible future. What is probable future is our everyday business as usual. We know autonomous car is happening. We have face recognition and all other features that we are currently dealing with, right? So that is going to get implemented in next 1 to 2 years, right? So that is probable future. So then possible future talks about future which might happen, but it would need like a huge technological or global changes, right? For example, right now, if you see in India, education is going through a reform, right? So there is a big change that sometimes comes. So that is in the possible future, right? And then what we do with all of this is we find that sweet spot in between about a future which is not just possible, but also which is preferable, right? We have the technology we are applying, but what is the future that we want to live in? So that's when we use the scenarios and we use it to make propositions, right? And what are these propositions? These lead to a speculative artifact, right? And so generally we are aware of prototype in design. So this is called prototype, like provocative prototype, right? And what is the use of that? To begin discussion, right? To understand the implications in the future. And how do we do that? Again, by handing over this artifact in a participatory discussion to the users to use. Now, we are aware of usability testing, but speculative design talks about abusability testing, where we see how this technology can be used or abused, right? And based on that, we define our strategy accordingly to create our preferable future. So I know it's enough of Gyan now. So it's already late night in India. So I'll just go to the example bit to help clear out more of the stuff. So, for example, in Black Mirror, season 4, episode 4, and Hang the DJ. So they took this signal relationship, right? How the future of relationship will fold out, right? And we all know that what they did, they uploaded their consciousness into the algorithm, and the algorithm ran many simulations of the couple, right? Based on that, they said that whether they are compatible or not. Now, where this idea is particularly interesting is it is raising question of how comfortable are we handing over all our decision-making capabilities to AI, right? That we possibly ourselves don't understand. So I talked more about this in my last session last year, right? When I talked about AI as a design material. So you might think that this is a fiction, but then a speculative designer called Nicole Hay, so she made a very low fidelity prototype to illustrate this idea called the Tinder robot. So what she did was she made this platform where the couple would each put their hands, and the robot would detect through the biometric sensor and would show some pictures, right? And depending on how they react to it, it would judge whether whether they're compatible or not, right? So in a time when it is very normal for couples to meet online, to trust algorithms on dating site, and finding suitable partners, we also use biometric devices to tell us what's going on with our own bodies, right? What we consider healthy and happy. Maybe it's not a stretch to consider what happens when we combine these things, right? So then obviously this relationship expands into family. So this is another speculative design project which happened a couple of years back. So this talks about, again, designer babies. So this speculative designer project called I Am Possible Baby, what it did was it stimulated discussion about the social, cultural, and ethical implications of emerging biotechnology, right? So we know that we have developed the capability right now, or for example, there is some research in Cambridge University, in Wisman Institute of Science, where they're talking that how it's no more like a fact, it's a fantasy or something like a dream, but it's actually possible for same-sex couple parents, to have their own child, right? So in this project, what we did was they took the DNA data of a lesbian couple and analyzed it using algorithm to simulate and visualize how their potential children are going to look like. Meanwhile, when they were making this, they were also making a documentary. So all of this was documented into a very nice photo book and was given to them. And it was also live telecasted in NHK, which is the Japanese national television, right? I think it was about a 30-minute documentary. And that led to quite a stir and open discussion, right? About the technology and, and this whole aspect, right? So this is where, again, I want to focus the speculative design works here. It opens opportunity to actually understand and talk about it, right? Now, this is a second signal which I'm going to talk about is biotechnology, right? So we know in CRISPR, in very layman terms, again, I'm not an expert here, but what I've read is that you can edit your DNA sequence and it's as simple as cut, copy, paste, right? So scientists in China had claimed a few years back that they use this technology to create HIV-resistant genetically modified babies, right? So this did cause a few uproar over there, but about the ethical consequences and whatnot. But speculative designer, they go a step beyond and ask question like, what if? So Nicole Spitt exactly did that. She asked question like, what if she uses this CRISPR genome editing to alter melanin pigmentation of butterfly wings, and she did it. And you can see there are alphabet in the wings of the butterfly. Now just imagine what how this technology can be used for marketing purpose, right? Companies would plant butterfly attracting plants at their office or on sponsored places, right? And when you look closely, you would see logo advertisement of the wings. Supposedly you're sitting now at your home and you find a butterfly flying in and it opens its wings and you see XT eSummit say 2050, right? And with pheromones, you can also guide the butterflies to specific places. So instead of billboards, then you could send these butterflies to influence people with subtle messaging. So what another futurist speculative designer, what she did was she made a campaign out of it, right? So biotechnology, almost in all culture, we have concepts of eternal life, and longevity, right? So her project called the Aeon talked about the philosophical speculative scenario about possible near future where we have the ability of reverse genetic reprogramming, right? Of stopping aging. So she showed through a campaign how in this couple, the guy has agreed to the guy went through the genetic reprogramming and has stopped his aging, but the lady went ahead without taking the genetic reprogramming. How would that relationship, be like? Right? How is the society going to react to that? So this she made into a beautiful campaign, and she let it for open discussion among futurist scientists to actually understand the cultural, social, and those ramifications. Right? Now, this is again something very close to our heart, climate change. We all talk about it, right? So in Black Mirror season 3, episode 6, it shows a scene where all the bees have gone extinct. So they are using the robotic bees for pollination. Well, a few years back, I think in New York Times, they did a survey to find out that how many Americans think about climate change. So, well, most of the Americans, they agree that, yeah, climate change is real. But then they also ask, how many of you think that it's going to affect you? Well, the scene totally reversed. There were very few people who could actually identify that, yes, climate change is happening and is going to impact me. So another agency called Superflux, they put up this a whole installation, so to say, called the mitigation of shock, right, in which they depicted an entire future London apartment that has drastically adapted for living with the consequences of climate catastrophe, economic instabilities, and etc. So when the participants, they would roam around in the room, they would find booklets and have small plants where they're growing mushroom, and also about some books which talk about how to grow, cook, eat, and care for one another in that situation. When you look through the mirror, you see a projected reality where it shows in future when there is food, when the food supply chain is broken, how it's going to be. And nowhere in the entire display have they mentioned in words about climate change or global warming. But there was enough evidence of it in ways that they could connect the dots on their own lives. So again, this is what speculative design does. It puts out this provocative prototype for people to immerse in and actually experience, right? And then they actually feel closer to the future self. So another signal is crime and punishment. So again, in Black Mirror season 3, episode 5, we saw how it shows that when technology, they used it to overlay augmented reality to basically dehumanize other humans, right? Who they labeled as enemy. Now, what if technology can be helped to prevent this by reversing it, right? Instead of dehumanizing, how can we use it to restore humanity? So again, a futurist by name Ai Hasegawa. So she made this prototype wherein she trained the AI algorithm on the photos of all the Americans who were shot dead in police violence, right? And that this is a big movement now there, right? So what she did was she used this algorithm and she made a prototype wherein she fit this prototype on the gun itself, and it would, when you will point it at someone, the algorithm would actually scan and see whether you're actually having that weapon or not, and would not allow you to shoot. So at least would give you some second to actually think that through. Do you actually want to do it? So again, giving that moment, that space of time. Sometimes people say that emotions overpower. So here is where AI can help, that give it that time to assist us to make that proper human judgment. Now you may say these are all prototype, but has there been any real effect of this? So I think this was a couple of years back when UAE they were discussing the national energy strategy. So again, they invited Superflux, this agency, to come and tell them about what could be the possible futures around energy, how to make their government laws and decisions around, and to stress test the opportunities and broader systemic consequences of all the future, right? How they are progressing. So then Superflux again went ahead and created many of this prototype, and all the cabinet ministers were invited. And when they went through it, there were simple, so-called simple experiment or prototypes, as in where they created a study where they show that if you progress in this current way, this is how your oxygen or air is going to look like, and they made them breathe that air. So it makes an impact immediately. So just few days after this, there was the tweet by Prime Minister where he said of UAE, where they said that they are going to invest $163 billion in renewables, right? So it has tangible exchange. And again, the power of speculative design is not just about what is built, right, but about the conversations that we have. So the more conversation we have with everyone and at all levels, so that's why this is a very unique forum where we have technology, strategy, senior leadership, and design folks, and we are all talking about it, not just about applications but also implications in our future, right? So with a lot of effort, lot of collaboration, and a lot of good work, we can begin to treat our future selves a little bit better. And that's where both the circle can intersect, right, when we identify with our future selves. So thank you very much. I have just started in this about reading about speculative design. If any one of you are interested or know about more such projects, please reach out to me. So thank you very much.